It's not about the number of dogs or cats that we adopt. It's each of those individual stories that are being created on that day. And now you're part of this animal's next 10 to 20 years living like a life that they didn't even know that was going to be possible for them. And I think that that is so cool. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tales, Ales, and Trails. This week on the podcast, we've got Emily Acevedo, Executive Director of the Butte Humane Society. We sit down with Emily for a discussion about the mission, the vision, the goals behind Butte Humane Society. We talk about everything that Butte Humane Society does on a daily basis to make our community a safe place for pets of all kinds. We talk about their upcoming wolf stock fundraiser event, which is going to be a lot of fun. And, personally for me, this one was a special one because we adopted our first dog, Watson, from the Butte Humane Society back in 2013 when we were just college students at Chico State. This was such a fun episode. Emily was awesome. We really had a great chat about what it means to serve this role in the community that Butte Humane Society does. So, without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Emily Acevedo of Butte Humane Society. Cheers. Well, Emily, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come down here, talk to you, talk about Butte Humane. I got to ask, it's a nice Friday morning, beautiful weather out this week. How are you? How are things?
Well, first, thank you so much for coming out here and doing this with me. Anytime that I get an opportunity to talk about Butte Humane Society, I'm ecstatic to do that. So the weather's looking good this weekend. It's Friday, so it's one of the best days of the week, and things are going well this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't beat it. I got to say this right off the bat because if I don't, I'll probably forget it. We have a pretty long-standing appreciation for Butte Humane. We adopted our first dog from Butte Humane back in 2013, Watson. He is a Jack Russell and cattle dog mix. He's going on 13 now. He's been, you know, a best friend and more. Like he's been the best dog. So that's for us. It's been very personal to support Butte Humane. So I just wanted to say that you guys have always had a big place in our hearts.
That's
So.
amazing. Well, thank you for adopting, and I'm so glad to hear that he's still around and hanging in there. That's awesome.
He had a splenectomy last year that my wife, Dr. Sansoni, actually performed the splenectomy.
Okay.
But other than that, he's still kicking, still out hiking with us, having a good time.
Good.
Trying to get into whatever he can get into food wise, but he's a good dog.
That's great.
It was one of those things where we showed up at Butte Humane with like not really an idea of what we wanted. We just knew that we were ready to get a dog. Probably weren't ready. We were college kids, but we really thought that having a dog would be awesome. And we found this 7-month-old little guy, and you guys made the adoption process super amazing and, checked in with us periodically. I know this was before your time, but it just goes to show like you guys have been doing such incredible work in the community for a really long time.
Well,
So,
thank you. I agree, and
yeah.
I think it's stories just like this is why it's so important to do what we do.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to first talk a little bit about you and your background. Off camera, you told me that you grew up in Reading. Um, can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing? Where obviously growing up in Reading has a lot of great outdoor opportunities and things like that. I'm kind of curious to where kind of the passion for animals came from for you. So tell me a little bit about kind of your upbringing.
Yeah. So, I grew up, as you mentioned, in Reading. It is a very, like, outdoorsy place to live in, so we spent most of our childhood outside or on the lake. We always had dogs growing up, and then when I got a little bit older, we, inherited some cats. We moved into a house and people had left their cats behind, which at the time was like, yay. And now when I think about it, I'm like, please don't do that. Please take your pets with you when you move. But so that was kind of my first interaction with cats. And we just kind of always had pets.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was just a very normal thing. I today could not imagine my life without pets, and I will probably never have a house that doesn't have a pet in it.
Right.
I think that I just kind of always had a natural affinity towards dogs. One of the childhood dogs that we had, we went to our cousin's house. We came down to Chico for an event, and they had an accidental litter of yellow labs. Neighbor dog hopped the fence, and the rest is history. And I just fell in love with this little yellow lab puppy, which, like, I'm such a lab person anyways. It's hard not to fall in love with any lab puppy at any point in time ever.
Of course, yeah.
Like, I always joke I'm going to be the girl from Bridesmaids. Like, I took 9. And it's hard not to do here, like, honestly. So
sure.
I fell in love with this puppy. I was in like 3rd grade. And I just, like, was not gonna leave without this dog, and so we drove back to Reading, and I had the dog in a box on my lap, and, like, I was always the one I think that was really pushing for us to, like, have dogs.
Yeah.
Very luckily for me, I had parents who were down for that.
Right.
So I think that was a big part of it, and then when I was 17, I went and visited Haven Humane Society, and I get to work really closely with them now, which is like a cool full circle thing.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I fell in love. I was just going to look, and I fell in love with this black lab. He was in a kennel with his sister, and the sister had already been adopted, and that made me feel so bad that his sister was going to leave and he was still going to be there.
Right.
And I just, like, again, I could not leave without this dog. So, I adopted him. His name was Myron at the time. I didn't keep that. Changed it to Bear.
Yeah.
But I had him for about 13 years. We had to put him down right at the end of, 2021. It was right before New Year's, and he just stopped being able to walk. He kind of lost the use of his back legs, and it wasn't improving. And so it was time. Hands down, the hardest thing that I've ever done, because that dog and I had been through it. We kind of grew up together, if you will, because I had him from 17 to 30.
Right.
And those are some really formative years. So, but I cannot explain the connection that I had with this dog. He was so intuitive. Like, he's the type of dog that you could tell him something you've never said before, and he just, like, knows what to do.
Yeah.
I've never experienced a more intelligent dog, and I always say, like, that was my soul dog.
Yeah.
And he was really there for me through some, tough stuff that happens when you're, going from a teenager through adulthood. And
Right.
so, I was so lucky to have had this dog, and I joke, I don't know, some people might not think it's funny, but I was really concerned when my husband and I decided we wanted to have kids, if I was gonna love these kids as much as I love this dog. Like, it's a real fear, because you don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love my kids,
Of
like,
course, yeah.
there's no comparison.
Right.
But for me, that dog was very, very close. And
Yeah.
so, like, that's just kind of how it was. And so, I had moved to Southern California. I was living down there when I got together with my husband. He was working for Cal Fire up in Reading still, and was, like, commuting back and forth. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He decided that he wanted to switch careers and wanted to go to the line school. And we were trying to decide on a location. So, funnily enough, because I moved away from Reading before I was 21, and my husband is a big Sierra Nevada fan, like, loves their beer. And so when we got together, he started introducing me to beer, and I also love beer. And so when we were looking at places that we wanted to go, because we were considering going out of state or whatever, there's different wine schools kind of around the country.
Sure.
He was kind of like, what about Chico? Like, Sierra Nevada's there. And so we came up. It was my first time ever having gone to the Sierra Nevada in Chico, and we looked at some apartments, and we just felt like, this is it. So we made the move to Chico. And I had been working in a physical medicine office. I was the director of operations for this 3-location practice in Orange County, and was having a really tough time finding something equivalent up here for work. And I saw a job posting from Butte Humane Society. They were looking for a dog adoption counselor. And I, feel just like so passionate about my connection to my dog and I got him from a humane society, I thought I would love this job. Like, this is not really what I'm looking for, but I wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And so I applied for that role, and the executive director at the time called me and said, "Hey, like, looking at your resume, it seems like maybe you would be a good fit. We're also trying to find a manager for our veterinary clinic. And would you be interested in talking about that?" And so I was, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're coming up on 8 years now. Maybe you've already hit it.
I have. Yep.
Uh,
It'll be 9 years in August now.
9 years in August. Wow. Wow. Well, I guess the thing I think about with that, it speaks to the longevity, speaks to wanting to be, you move through different roles here at Butte and Maine. You're now the executive director, but what about Butte and Maine made it the right fit for you?
I think it really goes back to, once I got here, I didn't really know what to expect. I had never worked for a nonprofit before. I had never worked in a veterinary center before. And so that was all new. But a lot of my motivation came from wanting to be a part of an organization that made connections just like the connection that I have with my dog. And
Yeah.
so I think initially for me, that was like the driving force, and it still is today. But I think that once I got here and really started like learning the processes and understanding all the different things, because I started in the veterinary clinic, but I'm the type of person that I want to know how everything works. I just kind of like dip my toes in
Right.
anywhere that will allow me to be a part of it. So I shared an office at the time with the adoption manager. And so her and I spent a lot of time together, and I learned a lot about that side of things from her. Um, and I feel like it's just such an important thing to do.
Yeah.
You're caring for animals who are, find themselves in the shelter system. It's not their choice to be there. It's not their choice whether they leave. And a lot of it for me is thinking about like my dog, who I love so much and has spent like years, over a decade with me, had the most wonderful life, like would not have had that opportunity if it wasn't for ending up at the Humane Society. I mean, anything could have happened. He was found as a stray. And so, I mean, there's a lot of scenarios that don't end well
Yeah.
for dogs that are strays.
Right.
And I just, felt like I just kind of felt called, I guess, to be a part of it, and then stayed because I wanted to see it through. Like, what does this look like? How do we achieve a community where every animal is safe and every animal is taken care of? And I mean, we're light years from that. I don't know that it'll happen in my lifetime, but if it does, I want to be like at the driver's seat of that, and I want to be part of what makes that happen. So I think that's a big part of why I've been here so long, is just like, what comes next? What comes next? And there's always something new, and there's always new ways to like innovate and get ahead of things. And
How do we keep pushing theirs forward, going towards that goal? At least even if we're not going to get there, immediately, how do we keep working towards that, making sure, we are a community where, like you said, every pet is safe. That is really inspiring stuff. I want to ask you, I'm sure a lot of people watching this know at least the fundamentals of what Butte Humane is. Adoption center, they have some veterinary services. For you, if you had to explain Butte Humane to someone, the mission behind what you guys do, the goal behind what you guys do, how would you explain what Butte Humane does?
I think I would describe us as like a happy halfway point for animals who are navigating the shelter system, and then as a resource for already owned pets in the community. And I think that our services have evolved over the years to try to encompass all animals, like not just shelter animals. And I think that a big part of that is like the expansion of our veterinary services, our pet food pantry, and these programs that are designed to meet people where they are with their pets and try to be a resource for keeping their pets healthy and happy and in their home. And then also building a shelter program where if an animal ends up in the shelter system and they end up at Butte Humane Society, that we've got a really good mechanism of getting them vetted and healthy and sheltered and safe until they get adopted. And so I think we take the premise of being like that middleman for a while really seriously.
Yeah.
And I think, our mission is saving lives, finding homes, inspiring compassion. And I think people don't realize that by supporting Butte Humane Society and get involved with Butte Humane Society, they really are saving lives. When we have animals that come in here, they might not have had a chance anywhere else.
Yeah.
All the shelters around us are open admission, and there's an unprecedented number of strays coming in to shelters across the United States, bigger than there ever has been.
Yeah.
These shelters are having to make really difficult decisions every single day. And the reason that a facility like Butte Humane Society is so important is because we do have a really great adoption mechanism, and we do have a really great foundation in place to get animals into our programs, that by supporting these other shelters, we're helping them create space and create time.
Yeah.
The better that we are at our job of getting animals in here and getting them fed and getting them adopted, the more support we can provide to animals that need to enter the shelter system. So it's like, it makes sense for us to be really focused and really dialed in on these programs and services. And I think because the needs of animals have evolved so much, when we started, we were founded in 1911.
Yeah.
It looked really different back then.
Yeah.
And like, how cool that 115 years ago, a group of people got together and said, you know what we need to do? We need to protect animals. We need to make sure that if they're homeless, that we can get them into safe housing and get them adopted out. And that we've been able to take that and turn it into what we are today. And programs like our pet food pantry, there's a lot of people that are experiencing food insecurity right now.
Yeah.
One of the first things that they're going to look at when they're faced with the decision of having to choose to feed their family or feed their pet is they're going to choose their family. And that should be the choice. That should be the choice. Like, don't get me wrong. But our pet food pantry is really a bridge to, if you're struggling to get pet food, we want to get you pet food, because what we don't want is for you to have to make the decision to surrender your beloved family pet that brings so many other benefits. And so it's things like that that I think are really, driving us forward in 2026 and making these things happen. So I think, if somebody had never heard about Butte Humane Society, I'd want them to really know that we're here for shelter animals, we're here for animals in the community, and we're also here for any animals that will end up in either of those two scenarios for the next 115 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That is awesome. I was, doing some prep for this, and obviously I knew about the adoption services. I knew about the veterinary services. To see things like the food pantry, to see things like even including resources like, here's some pet friendly living spaces. Here's in town, like, where you can go that's going to have pet friendly policies. Like, I think there's some disaster preparedness information on the website. Like, it really is an all encompassing, we're here to support you and your animal in whatever capacity we can. And it was really inspiring to see just the wealth of resources that you guys do make available to folks. It's really, like you said, meeting people where they are, being a partner for people to, care for their animals in the most appropriate ways possible. So, really, really awesome stuff. It's not all roses, I'm sure. I wanted to ask you about the day to day, because I do get the idea that there are it's hard work running Butte Humane Society it's hard work running this operation and doing the things you guys do, all of the things that you guys do. Can you take me through kind of what the day to day looks like for Butte Humane, the ups, the downs, the challenges? What's a day in the life of Butte Humane look like?
So I think, day to day here, a lot of what we do is repetitive, and then at the same time, a lot of it is new.
Yeah.
Our typical length of stay for dogs is usually 20 to 30 days. We try to keep it on the low end of that if possible. Cats typically are between 14 and 20 days. And so we've always kind of got a steady stream of like new animals entering the shelter system.
Yeah.
Which is what I think keeps it like fresh and exciting. But on the shelter side of things, we start every morning with cleaning.
Yeah.
And one of the comments that people make to me whenever they come and visit us, kind of no matter the time of day, is like, when you think about the number of animals that are housed here, people walk in and they're always really surprised at like how clean it is.
Yeah.
which is such a compliment, but is also such a necessary part of what we do.
Yeah.
Our whole premise is to steward our resources really well, and cleaning and cross-contamination prevention provide such a safety net for us to avoid situations where we're having to just prescribe meds and have people in isolation and, be treating different contagious diseases and things like that all the time. So cleaning for us is like one of the most important things. So we have staff that gets here at 7 o'clock in the morning, and pretty much 7 to 11 is cleaning. All of our kennels get cleaned every single day. All of our cat kennels get cleaned every single day. Dishes get done every day, litter boxes, laundry. We do about 10,000 pounds of laundry a month here. So it's always, whenever you're here, our washers will always be going. Our dryers will always be going. And any space that you walk through here has been cleaned and mopped every single morning. And for our puppies, because they get a little wild in their kennels during the day, we typically do like midday cleaning and then end of day cleaning as well.
Yeah.
So cleaning is like a really big part of what we do, and it's where we spend a majority of our time during the day. And our goal is to get our cleaning done so that we can consistently open our doors 7 days a week from 12 to 4 to anybody who wants to come in and adopt. Because it's also our goal to get these animals in homes like as quickly as possible. Again, because the backside of that is now we've opened a kennel and we can go pull another dog that might be at risk of euthanasia or needing to enter the shelter system. And so those are kind of our focus areas. And we run our adoptions from 12 to 4. And then basically we close the doors and we, do PM feeding along with the cleaning in the morning. We're feeding everybody. And then doing AM and PM meds depending on what's going on. And so it's kind of like that's the schedule for the day, and it's what happens in the middle that can kind of vary. So we get people from kind of all over Northern California that come up to Butte Humane Society to adopt. And I think it's because we've created an environment that people want to be in.
Yeah.
And like I recently fostered a puppy, great dog. And a guy came from Fortuna to adopt him.
Oh, wow.
So people are traveling here and they know about us
Yeah.
and they want to come here and adopt. And so we also try to create adoption policies that, again, it's like meeting people where they are. We're going to assume if you're walking through the door and you want to adopt that you're here for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And it's our goal to find the right fit pet for you, not qualify you to adopt. Like we don't know you.
Sure.
You can, be the best pet owner ever. And so it's just our goal to find who's like that right fit dog or cat for you, and let's make this happen. And so our adoption counselors really focus on the individual that's in front of them and the conversation that they have and lifestyle and how much do you work and what does your activity levels look like, and let's try to pair you with an animal that fits into that instead of having you go through this really lengthy application and then putting you into a box based on like the answers that you've written down. Because I just don't think that that's something that creates these really long-term matches. And it's hard to say. I mean, you experienced it. You were a college student that adopted a dog. I was 17. I think there's a lot of people who feel like younger people cannot be great adopters. But I put my dog before myself in a lot of situations.
Right.
And he was with me for his whole life. So, we just try to see people as people, and let's figure out like what's going to be the right fit for them to make this a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And assume, I think a lot of shelters operate around the fact that it's like their job to protect and like gatekeep and keep people, like only the right people in to meet these animals. And I think that at large, our society is made up of people who really love and care about animals. And so why don't we operate and interact with people as if I'm just going to assume that if you're here, it's because you love animals.
Yeah.
Till you prove me otherwise.
Right.
Like that's how we're going to go about this.
Right.
Because it really is not our goal to gatekeep or to keep animals longer than they need to be here. It's to meet people and understand, what they're looking for, what's going to be right fit for them. So those meets can kind of go all different kinds of ways. We sometimes have people that are coming in and bringing their dogs to meet another dog.
Right.
We love to be a part of that and help give you the support as a new adopter and introducing your, potential new dog to your existing dog and kind of help work through some of those things. And We want to be a resource for questions that you might have. And so that's really, I think, those open adoption hours are kind of really where the magic happens because, I think about adopting my dog. Like what we're really doing in those scenarios, it's not about the number of dogs or cats that we adopt. It's each of those individual stories that are being created on that day. And now you're part of this animal's next 10 to 20 years living like a life that they didn't even know that was going to be possible for them. And I think that that is so cool. Like it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is like probably one of the coolest things about this, right? I mean, getting to be a part of, and it's a pretty constant thing where you get to be part of all of these new chapters for both these pets and for these people. I mean, it's got to be like we said. There's a ton of work that goes into the day to day of this, but at the end of the day, that's got to be like, man, it's totally worth it. Like all of it's worth it to be able to, you know, be a part of these new chapters. Really, really cool stuff. I did want to ask you about Woofstock.
Yeah.
Because that's a big event for you guys. It's coming up here in April.
April 18th.
April 18th. Can you tell me about what Woofstock? What is it? What's it about? What's the purpose behind it? Tell me about Woofstock.
I think that a lot of people don't fully understand how Butte Humane Society gets funding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually really simple because all of our funding comes from people just like you in the community. We do not have any government contracts. We don't get money from the city. We don't get money from the county. We're not funded by like the National Humane Society or anything like that. All of our programs are made possible because there are people in the community who believe, like we do, that the animals deserve a chance and they are willing to step up and donate their hard-earned dollars to make sure that these programs are running. And so for us, Woofstock it's our single biggest, community fundraiser. We do a couple of different fundraisers throughout the year, like our golf tournament and our gala, but those are, much smaller groups. And Woofstock for us is really our opportunity to invite as many community members who want to join us. We host it at the fairgrounds. But it's our second largest fundraiser of the year. And those funds are so critical to all of our programs. And like everybody has, experienced over the last couple of years, prices of everything have increased. Nonprofits and Butte Humane Society have not been immune to that.
Yeah.
So it's even harder today to raise the money that we need to continue doing the work that we do. So Woofstock is such a critical event for us for a lot of reasons, but mainly because it gives us a really large boost to our fundraising. And our goal is to make this our biggest Woofstock ever. So Woofstock itself started a couple years ago when we hosted it on our property, and we pretty quickly outgrew that. The fairgrounds has proven to be a really great location for us because it's covered. The weather has also proved to be a little challenging over the years in April. And so Woofstock is a family and dog-friendly all-day music festival fundraiser. We have 4 bands, a really amazing vendor market. We're up to about 50 vendors now in our vendor market. We've got some incredible local food trucks that we park on what we call Food Truck Alley. And then we've got a dog zone, a kid zone, beer and wine garden. All of our local first responder agencies are going to be there. And it's just a day that is about coming together as a community for the things that we love, which are dogs and cats, enjoying some good music and spending the day raising some funds for Butte Humane Society that we critically need to keep our programs going. So Woofstock is a really great event. And last year was one of our biggest years, which is why we have the goal of making this the biggest year.
Yeah.
But I joke that last year there were like more dogs than there were people, and it was just the best. Everybody was having a good time. The weather was fantastic. And it's not like a fast pace, you just get to kind of hang out and get to be with fellow members of your community and know that you're surrounded by people who care about the things that you care about, like animal welfare and making sure that Butte Humane Society can continue doing the work that we do. And it's just a really great opportunity to kind of come together in a large format.
Yeah.
And we try to keep it really focused on the local aspect too, with the local food trucks and our first responder agencies and local vendors in the vendor market. And like, this is we all live here. We're all responsible for what goes on in our community. And what we're really trying to drive forward is, again, like building a community that is kind to animals and where animals are safe. And Butte Humane Society is a huge part of that. So it's just a great fundraiser and a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. We went last year and had a blast, and we're looking forward to going this year.
I'm so glad.
If people want to get tickets, if people want to go, where should they go?
So tickets are available at wolfstockchico.com. We do pre-sale pricing through March 17th, and then March 18th prices go up. So if you're thinking about getting tickets, pays to get them in advance, you save a little bit of money. But no matter when you get your tickets, please know that the price you pay for your ticket is helping to support dogs and cats here at the shelter. And I don't think you could put a price on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I also want to touch on the fact that this is going to be the 115th year of Butte Humane, or this is the 115th year of Butte Humane Society. You guys are having your gala again, I think in the fall. 115 years is kind of crazy. Like, that's a long time for any organization to be operating, especially a humane society. I mean, what do you think? I think just candidly, what does 115 years mean to you? I know you guys are having that gala to celebrate it, and it's going to be a fantastic time. When you look at that kind of longevity, what does that mean to you?
I think my role here in the position that I'm in is really unique because I'm responsible for all the fundraising that happens. And I've got a team around me of really amazing people. But at the end of the day, like, I'm responsible for making sure that Butte Humane Society is going to be here next year and the year after that and for the next 115 years. And so when I look at 115 years, what I really take out of that is hope. It gives me hope that we've gotten to where we are because people believe in us and people are willing to step up and donate. And it gives me hope that even, when times are difficult for fundraising, which we're in a difficult fundraising season right now, it gives me hope that if we could make it over the last 115 years, that we can make it for 115 more years. Because I think it gets really easy this is such an emotionally heavy one. I'm sure you hear it a lot with your wife that's in the veterinary field. I mean, compassion fatigue is a real thing. And everything that's connected to animals, it's so heavy, it's so emotional. I kind of joke, like, if I stop and think about it too long, I'll cry. So I just keep moving because that's what needs to happen for these cats and dogs. But it's been such an honor and such a privilege to be part of an organization that does have such a strong foothold in the community and has so much longevity in the community. And it's just kind of the thing that gives me peace of mind. Like, we're going to be okay. We're going to make it. We're going to get through good seasons and bad seasons and challenging seasons, because ultimately what we're doing is saving the lives of dogs and cats. And so I look at 115 years as an amazing milestone, but also an amazing propeller for the next 115 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, 9 years here, is there a story, a pet, a experience, something that really sticks out to you the most about your time here?
Man, I mean, it's hard to pick just one. I can think of, handfuls of animals that stuck out to me specifically. And I think it kind of parallels with like where my personal life was at the time. So, we moved to Chico. My husband and I got married shortly after we moved to Chico. And at that point in time, we had 2 dogs, and we were really regularly fostering.
Yeah.
Weekend fosters, bedtime fosters, that type of thing.
Yeah.
We eventually got our cat, Schmidt, who is 8 now. Love him. And so we kind of stopped fostering for a little while because it's hard to sometimes bring in like strange adult dogs when you don't know how they're going to do with the cat.
Sure.
And now we've gone through the season of having kids. Our kids are getting a little bit older. We have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so we're just starting to get back into, we've done some puppy fostering and those types of things. I would say that one of the stories that sticks out to me the most, just because it's been I think it's kind of cool. I don't stop to think about how cool it is sometimes that I have been here for 9 years and I've gotten to be a part of so many major things at Butte Humane Society. I was here during the campfire.
Yeah.
I was managing the veterinary center at that time, and the vet that was running the emergency shelter called us and just said, like, we've got 30 burn cats and we don't have anywhere to take them. PCA is full. Can you guys help? And we like overnight became a 24-hour hospital, and we were doing bandage changes and those types of things. And so I was really involved in that. But somehow I also got put in charge of like reunification for these cats,
Yeah.
which was like a whole nother ball game, right?
Yeah.
People are spread, across the country at that point. And so there were quite a few cats that were left unclaimed. And there are a lot of outdoor, like feral cats
Sure.
in our area
Yeah.
that aren't really feral. People feed them and they're friendly, but
Right.
they don't belong to anybody. And so we had one cat, this really cute Siamese. His name was Maximus. He didn't get claimed. And so we waited a really long time before we made these cats available for adoption. But once he was available to be adopted, he got adopted and went home. And he lived several years with his owner-adopter. And the owner passed away. And so the family brought Maximus back to Butte Humane Society. And it was, bittersweet because you want to see them in their homes forever. But it was also like, hey, buddy, like I was there with you on some of the worst days of your life. And now I get to be with you. You're here, you're healthy, and we get to adopt you out again. And I think that was really cool. And like, it was so nice to see him again. Like we never really want to see animals back in the shelter, right? Like we want them to be adopted and stay adopted. But I think part of what makes Butte Humane Society so special is like when the animals do come back, it's also, we know that they're safe and we're just going to do it again. We're just going to get them adopted again. That's what we do. So that's, I think, a story that really sticks out for me. And there are a couple of dogs that we've had that have been really special to me. And it's, like I mentioned, the recent puppy that I fostered, we were teetering on adopting him. It would have been our third dog, and that's kind of crazy. But like, just a great dog, and getting to foster him and then meet his adopter and talk to his adopter. And the adopter was so kind because I was like very emotional about it. And I'm not sad about this. I'm so happy that you're adopting him, but it's like so hard once you've kind of built a bond with the dog to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And I know that he's going to have an amazing life, but it's things like that that I think are just so cool and kind of put the wind back in your sails,
Yeah, absolutely. Emily, I wanted to ask you kind of tie things together here. And we've talked a lot around this already. Is there something about what you guys do in your role here that is the most rewarding, the most meaningful, the most significant part for you of what you guys get to do every single day?
I would say there's a lot of different pieces. For me as a reward, I think now comes in my role, getting to be a little bit of a part of all of the successful things that happen here.
Yeah.
It's getting to get a call from the veterinarians over at the vet center asking about, a treatment that they want to do or a path they want to pursue for a client or whatever. And, kind of making sure that that's okay and getting to be the person that says like, yes, let's do it. We'll figure it out. It's getting to be a part of the team that sees animals going home. It's getting to be the person who meets with like our donors and our supporters and our businesses that are willing to stand up and partner with us, and put their money forward to help Butte Humane Society survive.
Yeah.
I would say it's a little bit of all of those things that it brings a lot of joy, and it makes the tough parts about the job like worth it times infinity.
Yeah, 100%. Before I let you go, is there anything else you wanted to add that you think might be important for folks to know about Butte Humane Society?
I think that if there's something that, people could take away from this podcast, if you've ever known or loved a dog or a cat and you have the means to support your local Humane Society, please, please, please donate. I think a lot of people assume that, if they're not able to adopt or they're not able to volunteer, then they're not bringing value to what we do every day. And it truly takes a village to do the work that we do. It happens through our volunteers and through our sponsors and through our donors. But anything that you are able to contribute makes such a huge difference. And every animal who has had the opportunity to come through Butte Humane Society and be adopted through Butte Humane Society that chance was provided because however long ago somebody said yes. Somebody said, yes, I will donate $10. Yes, I will donate $20. And I don't think they realized at that time that that gift was something that was going to create those opportunities. But that's really what it looks like in practice is as long as we have the resources, this is the work that is being achieved and accomplished. And so no matter where you got your dog or where you got your pet, there's always support that's needed at Butte Humane Society, and we want you to be a part of it.
Emily, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fantastic. Like I said, like we hold Butte Humane so highly in our hearts. So it was fantastic to be able to sit down with you and talk about the mission and all of the efforts behind the work that you guys do. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming here and allowing me to share our story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be in Reading this weekend, so I'll have the Hexagenia from Fall River in your honor. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.